One more note as welcome everyone coming to join us for the Mastering Built Green class. We will be starting momentarily. We have started the recording as well.
Hi, everyone. We're just going to allow another 30 seconds to a minute for some more attendees to show up and get settled in. So if you just will hold on, we will get started shortly. In the meantime, I'll go over some basic housekeeping while people are settling in. Everyone's videos and mics are muted for this presentation. You are welcome to use the chat feature, but the main Q&A, if you'd like to submit a question to the panelist, is the Q&A function located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Please submit all questions. We will answer most of them at the end during the Q&A session. However, if it's a very relevant question, we may interrupt the panelists to describe something that you are unclear of to help you understand what they're talking about. And feel free to submit them throughout the webinar in case you don't want to forget your question, and we will address them at the end.
I'm going to start telling jokes pretty soon.
All right, so we're going to get started. Jake, I'll let you take this away. Jake is our moderator today, and thank you everyone for joining us. Again, you are muted and your cameras are off. Please submit all questions in the Q&A feature and we will address them at the end. Take it away, Jake.
Great stuff, lovely. Thank you, Sonia, and thanks to Built Green for hosting and having us along. Okay, we've got two companies here talking about what they do. We've got Anthony Maschmedt from Dwell Development and Norm DesRosiers from TC Legend Homes. Let's just dive in. Anthony from Dwell Development, why don't you tell us a bit about Dwell Development and what it is you do?
Great, well thanks for having me. So I started Dwell Development in 2005, and I had left my family business that was building homes, townhomes and single family homes in the city of Seattle. And I left because I wanted to do something different. I didn't want to be, you know, a little fish in a big pond, trying to compete with a lot of people who are building homes and selling in the city of Seattle. So I took the very first Built Green, one of the very first Built Green certification programs back in the early 2000s, and felt that this was going to be a pathway forward for me to go out on my own and kind of start something different. And so I knew Built Green and building sustainable homes was going to be the backbone of what I wanted to do, but I also wanted to shift and make the modern aesthetic more part of the dialogue, what I want to put out there. Nobody was doing modern construction, modern design back in 2003, 2004, 2005. So I wanted to differentiate myself. And when we started building our homes, the goal was always to lead, always challenge, and always strive to do more with each home we build and try to learn from the previous one and how to build a better, more sustainable home. And thank goodness we did that, because when the big housing market crashed, we were set up pretty well. I mean, my company grew by 300% during the downturn. We were pre-selling homes in foundation, and people basically validated our model of not just design, because you got to get people to get out of the car to want to come into your home to begin with, but really they were willing and wanting to live in a sustainable, healthy home. And so the Built Green program that I based my whole company on is a big part of everything we do. And we went down the path of building passive homes and try to push the envelope. And we realized that people don't really understand what a passive home is and how it works, but they understand net zero energy. And so we shifted and started making all of our homes net zero energy ready or net zero energy. And it's been quite a journey since then. It's 2021 now. I built over 300 homes, and a good handful of them have solar panel on them. All of them are net zero energy ready, 5-star Built Green, Emerald Star, International Living Institute, Department of Energy award-winning homes. So, you know, we continue to kind of push the envelope on everything that we do, and we strive to learn on each project.
That's great stuff. Thanks very much, Anthony. Same question to Norm, really. Norm, TC Legend Homes, how many houses are you building? What kind of houses are they? Where are they? And really anything else you want to tell us about your background?
Sure. Yeah, so I jumped on with TC about 5 years ago, and that was after kind of a long process of, you know, growing up in a off-grid home, and then kind of taking some of the little elements that we were living with that way to some of the construction practices that I was doing, and built my first off-grid home and realized how little energy we were using and how easy it was really to do, and started trying to integrate that into, you know, the houses that we were building for other people. Always fun to be your own guinea pig, and did plenty of that, and I still am in the house that I live in now. But you know, I went on this journey, and I actually ran into a couple of friends of mine who had started TC, and yeah, 5 years ago we set up a team, and we have now every home that we build, which is, you know, probably, you know, 4 to 5 a year. They're all custom homes, but they're all Built Green, 5-star, zero energy homes, and it's going really well. We have a huge demand, and we're still getting calls from, you know, all over the country to help out with I don't know, people like you guys here that are trying to do the same thing. So yeah, happy to help.
Great stuff, Norm. Thanks very much. All right, let's just go back to Anthony. What I'd like you to do, Anthony, is just really describe your building system. So if you could just describe the house, it's a, you know, your typical dwell development house is a high performance house. Perhaps start the foundation, go up. How do you build it? How does it achieve this high level of performance?
Okay, absolutely. So the visual concept I want to put out to everybody is that think about filling a balloon with helium, right? You want that helium to stay in the balloon. If you have not a very good balloon, the helium leaks out of it, and the balloon will drop down. If you have a nicer balloon, then that helium stays in it longer. So the idea I'm trying to paint here is that when we build homes at Dwell, it's all about the thermal envelope of the house, making it really, really efficient. And it's built off of the passive house model, like I mentioned earlier. So we don't build passive houses anymore, but everything we do, we say powered by passive house, the concept of passive house, making a house airtight, making it with high performance windows and insulation. So, you know, you want to keep all that energy inside the house, and your mechanical loads come down. So to your question, Jake, you know, it all starts at the foundation, right? So we insulate 4 inches of rigid insulation underneath our slabs, because, you know, one of the biggest ways you lose heat loss in a house is right through the ground, right underneath the bottom of the crawl space, or through the slab if it's not insulated. The next thing we do is, once we frame the house up, we do a double 2x4 wall system. And the reason we chose that is because I'm a spec builder. I'm not a custom builder. So everything we do has to be price conscious, and we have to get the most bang for our buck. And so from a structural standpoint, a 2x4 wall works great. The reason why people use 2x6 or 2x8 is because the code requires more insulation in the wall. So what we've decided to do is stick with the 2x4 construction, and then just add an additional furred out wall, an additional 2x4 wall that we can adjust that width. We can go 8 inches, 10 inches, 12 inches, and we can pack that wall full of insulation depending on what what metrics we're trying to meet with our energy monitoring. So it gives us lots of flexibility. It gives us those chase lines to get mechanicals up to places where you couldn't normally get it in a standard home. Then the roof. A lot of people put roofs on, they vent the roofs. It's a natural thing to do. Well, that's the most place where most heat and energy loss shoots right out of the roof systems of homes. So, we do a non-vented roof system, and that non-vented roof system is critical to building a high-performance home. And so we do either a truss or joist system on the roof. It depends on our design. And that underneath is packed with cellulose insulation. So you have no gaps in bib insulation, bad insulation. So, but on top of the roof, we do another 3 inches of foam and a hardboard. So it helps with, thermal loss, moisture getting in there, and it makes that our roofs are anywhere from 60 to 90, as far as their R values. So they're excessive. We've done 110 R value on one roof. So really, you can't do too much. The key is you got to have it designed right so there's no gaps. It has to be packed really, really tight. And then really the critical thing is air sealing. And we've all built homes before where you go around and you try to tape up the holes or not have seams in between your framing members or the king studs in the corners. And how do you get to all these little nooks and crannies? A plumber drills a hole, oh, wrong spot, drill another hole in the side of your house, and those are all heat loss areas. And what we do is we put a fluid applied membrane around the whole exterior of our building. All the house is all sheeted, ready to go, roof's on, and we roll this product called EnviroDry onto the house, and it is a fluid applied membrane that makes the house airtight, waterproof, so we can keep constructing during the rainy winters around here. And it flashes in the windows, and it really air seals the house, because it's much easier to air seal from a flat surface where you can see all the seams than it is to try to go find all the nooks and crannies on the inside of the house. So that is crucial. That element goes on the home, the roof is on, the windows are in, and we're dried in. We're proceeding with construction. Then on the interior, we do an additional air sealing technique called Aero Barrier, and it is a wonderful product. I know Norm and those guys use it as well. It's won all kinds of awards, but it takes all the guesswork out of making sure your house is airtight. And it's a system where there's airborne cough that goes into the air, and it flies around as the house is pressurized, and it air seals the house. It gives that extra layer of protection. It goes where all those little nooks and crannies are, and it builds up on top of each other until you get the ACH where you want it. You can start off at a 2.5 or a 5, and by the time you're down at 0 or below. So it's an incredible product that is a key to what we do here at Dwell Development. Once you have that, then it's really about adding high performance triple pane windows into you want to have all that solar gain to come in. You want to keep that gain, but you don't want to lose all the heat that's going out those windows and out those openings. So triple pane high performance windows are crucially important. And so now you have an airtight shell, you have high performance doors and windows, everything's staying inside. And the biggest thing you got to add at this point is ventilation, right? Because if you don't ventilate it right, it ain't gonna work. So we install heat recovery ventilators in our homes, and these are a heat exchange process that's constantly bringing fresh air into the house and exporting that warm air that we've already paid for, that we've already heated. And instead of just dumping it and bringing in cold air, there's a heat exchange process that goes on. And it's very efficient. So it preheats all that cold air outside really efficiently, so your thermostat doesn't kick on. And so you have a big blanket around the house, massive amounts of insulation, no heat going out the roof or the bottom. Your air system's moving the air around, and guess what? Your mechanical loads go whoop, way down. So your heating and cooling systems that you put in the house are minimal. And so you can do different types of heat pumps and hot water heat pumps, and we do mini splits. So if you can get that envelope tight and ventilate it right, you are right there. It's the key to everything that we do at Dwell, and the devil's in the details for sure.
Got it. Thank you very much, Anthony. And you do, you place solar panels on the roof on some houses and not on others, presumably?
Every home we do is ready for solar panels. We have a net meter system already designed to go on it. Sometimes we put the solar panels on. Sometimes we let our homeowners put them on. Sometimes they put them on a year after they move in. So every home we build is ready for solar, but we do it on a few homes, yes.
Great, and it's worth noting for attendees that the brands that Anthony and Norman indeed as well are using for Windows and for the air sealing technologies are all listed. There is a handout at the end that basically will tell you which companies Anthony and Norm are using, tried and tested. So that's a handout. I think you request it or it comes up in the PowerPoint, but it's available. Thank you, Anthony. Norm, same question for you, really. I mean, the TC Legend builds houses, they have an envelope. Do you want to do the same routine? Start maybe from the bottom, go up to the top, tell us your envelope and your mechanical systems?
Yep, absolutely. Yep, same exact concept that Anthony just gave everybody. We have an envelope that starts from the ground up with ICF forms. So they're a foam form. If you guys aren't familiar, the ones that we are using are the Nuduras, and they have about a R24 value. Website claims some kind of strange thermal R value of an R50. Not exactly sure how that works, but.
And this is stem wall insulation you're talking about here.
Yep, this is the stem wall, and then we'll backfill the inside of our walls with, our sand and aggregate, and then we put 4 inches of foam underneath our slabs. 99% of the homes that we build are slab on grade. It's a great way to seal up that floor space and make sure you never have to crawl into a crawl space ever again. From there up, we use SIPS panels for our walls and roof system. You can specify different sizes depending, I guess, on your climate around here. We've got
could you describe what a SIPS panel is? Because it's
sure, yeah. There's a handful of different types, but the one that we use has a double skin and then a styrofoam or polystyrene, sandwich in the middle. And so the ones that we use in this climate have 5.5 inches of foam in the middle between the two OSB skins on the outside. And then it makes it pretty easy to infill all your edges and your window buckouts with a standard 2x6. Then the roof system is typically, you'll infill with a 2x10. So you've got, 9.5 inches of foam in the roof system. Our walls are ending up at about a R29, and then the roof system with that 10 inches, more like a 45 to 48. It fluctuates with the temperature, kind of an interesting little phenomenon with this polystyrene. The R value goes up with as the temperatures go down. So yeah, that creates our completely sealed, envelope along with our triple pane high performance windows as well, everywhere. And then we, finish it off with, super air sealing. I think Anthony did a great job of describing the aero barrier. We use that. And with SIPS panels, you have pretty minimal seams through the walls. We glue all of the panels together with a mastic that's provided by Premier, the SIPS panel company. And then on top of that, we'll go through oftentimes with this tape. It's the stickiest tape that I've ever come across, and it sticks to OSB like crazy. So we'll tape those seams, and then we'll top it all off with the aero barrier. And then you can watch your air exchanges just drop on the computer screen that aero barrier comes out with. And then we also use heat or HRVs, heat recovery units, to preheat the incoming fresh air to all of our living spaces. And then we use heat pumps. We're using a quarter of the power necessary to heat a conventional house. So these little heat pumps will do a lot or do everything that you need. We use a couple of different types of heat pumps depending on the size of the house and whether or not our homeowners want radiant and floor heat. That's going to be an air to water system where we, and then for smaller homes, we can get away with, mini splits or air to air. So it's a pretty simple process, and it's working for us. I think
I would pull you back to solar panels again. I mean, you're installing solar in TC Legend.
Yeah, we put solar panels on all the homes. We make sure that the panel's sized to power the house, all of the house loads, and then enough in excess to power at least one electric car. So.
Sounds good, which would be net positive. Now, let's just cycle around again. I realized I've dropped the ball. We're going to ask both Anthony and Norm to throw out some costs, perhaps, sort of in terms of, what this stuff actually costs. And I know that Sonia's got a slide. I was wondering, and let's just roll back around again. Let's go back to Anthony. I mean, yeah. Because this is an upgrade. Your building technology is different to, code minimum or standard house. So what does it actually cost above standard in your estimation? And I know you've never built a normal house in your life. Why don't you talk about that for a while, would you please?
Well, yeah, you're putting it to me because I've never built a code built home. A lot of the builders in this webinar, we've all been taught code's great, especially up in the Northwest, we're pretty progressive. And code is the minimum requirement to get a permit. So, we look at code as the bare minimum. It's like, congratulations, you got a D- on your report card. Way to go. So what we do and what TC Legend does is we want to get 100% better than that. And that's net zero. And the techniques that we do at Dwell, that we've done tried and true 50 different wall systems and different kind of coordinations and everything is trying to get to a place where we can build these homes cost effectively. And it's really important because if nobody can afford to build it, nobody can afford to buy them, then no one's going to do them. And so we've tried to figure out the secret sauce of finding how do you get the best performance for the best price. And what TC Legend and what Dwell does is all these things are really, the goal is to get the house so it's using less energy in order to offset it with the solar. So the solar is the end game, but you got to get the building there cost effectively in order to get your solar isn't a $60,000 solar system. You want to be down in the $15,000 to $30,000 range to get your
house. You build a super high performance house, so you don't need a huge heating load.
That's super comfortable. I mean, every home we build, we're at 50 to 60%, sometimes 70% above code before solar. So if you're in that range, before you break around, you have a healthy home that's comfortable, that's net zero energy ready. And now to get it there, is the labor and is where the secret sauce is. And then the solar takes you to the promised land. And so you want to get the house to be able to perform. So you don't need all the solar to get, any house can be net zero if you have an unlimited budget for solar. So I think I want to make sure people understand that. But what we've done is that, and this is, this is very, very general, because like I said, I've never built a code built home before, but this is kind of what, my conversations, me running numbers and kind of doing some pluses and minuses. But, let's start with our scenario, the building strategy of framing the double 2x4 wall. When I send this to bid to my framer, he sees the double 2x4 wall and he just says, okay, I can build that for you. No problem. Some other framer goes, hey, that's a little more labor intensive. I'm going to add a little more money into the budget. That's why it could be, from a labor standpoint, really no difference in your cost per square foot. It's just additional 2x4 materials. So I put $0 to $4,000 in there for labor and material, depending on your relationship with your supplier and the design of your homes and your labor. The non-vented roof assembly, it is more for a roofer to come out to do our roof systems. There's more to it. There's more details to it. So that adds about $4,000 to $6,000 onto a standard roofing system, no matter if you're doing a flat roof, a TPO, or if you're doing a 3-tab, shingle roof, whatever you're doing, we have a system to get there, and it's anywhere from $4,000 to $6,000 on top of that. The fluid applied weatherproof barrier, the EnviroDry is what we call it. So, these next two items kind of go hand in hand because, there's a cost. To have someone come out and roll on that material, it depending on how big the house is, it's $3,500 to $5,000. But what you're eliminating in that cost is the fact that your siders then don't have to go around and wrap your house with house paper to protect that, to protect the building, because the EnviroDry becomes part of your building envelope. It's attached to it. So there's no need to put a house paper on. So that usually deducts, at least 2,500, if not more, off of your siding bid, because you're not paying someone to go around and wrap and take that house like that, because it's already done. It's already flash. It's already waterproof. And
you've got air sealing and you've got vapor barrier in the same package.
Exactly.
So the one product's doing two jobs, so you can take one of those products off.
And there's a few different products out there. Again, we've tried them on. We built a passive house with a BioDrive, which is very cost effective, and we built the passive house net zero energy home with like Prosoco, which is like 3 or 4 times the price of the product we use. So it's really about the application and get the details in. Going to your window packages, everybody uses, in production build. Well, I wouldn't call us a production builder, but in infill single family townhouses in the city of Seattle is what we build. There's a few different window manufacturers, but everybody offers a double pane and a triple pane window. And so we got upgrading to a triple pane window for your average package costs another $4,000 to $5,000, depending on how many windows you get in your home. Adding the rigid insulation underneath your slab. My concrete guy comes in, they buy the material, they have the labor come out and do it. It's about $3,000, but again, the impact for that $3,000 is massive on the performance of the home. Aero Air Sealing with that Aero barrier, that's the material that goes inside the house that you spray around, and it kind of blocks everything down for us. The average house, about $4,000 on top of it. Heat recovery ventilator, very few builders. I think TC Legend is the only other builder I know that really puts in heat recovery ventilators, and it's going to be something that's pretty much going to be required. Air sealing and heat recovery ventilators are going to be in every home here pretty soon when the energy code changes. Well, I'm sure we'll talk more about that, but heat recovery ventilation fully installed, inducted, $5,000 to $7,000. I put on the high side here for some of you guys to see the numbers. And then when you do a heat recovery ventilator, then you don't have to do all the bath fans, because it's actually exporting that stale air from your laundry room and your bathrooms. So it's pulling that air out, so you don't have that cost of bath fans throughout the house. So that does a little deduction, about $1,500. So for us to build a net zero energy ready home, it's about 4 to 6% of our standard construction budget, and it's not a lot. A lot of banks require you to put 5 to 10% in a line item for contingencies or unknowns. So to get your home to be extremely healthy, comfortable, balanced, I don't think that's a huge investment, especially when people are willing to pay for it and they want it, and it's the right way to build a house, right? That's what people want, to live in a healthy home, especially now. And heat recovery ventilators are a huge part of that, because they clean and help filter that air when it comes in from our summer smoke, as well as COVID items going into the air and get people sick. So you can upgrade filters in these systems as well. So that's a huge marketing aspect of all this as well. So to get it to net zero, it's just really the cost of the solar. It's like, how many of these steps did you do, and how many of them did you do them effectively with detail in mind? And a solar package could be anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000 on big single family home, and you'll get to net zero. And really, that's our goal and our mission, is to get every home that we build to be net zero. And this is just kind of our process of how we do it.
Great stuff. That's wonderful stuff. Thanks, Nancy. And thanks for clarifying that the healthy home component is heavily related to the HRV, because I think it's not widely understood. But the HRV continually changes the air in the house all the time. So new construction takes out all the building gases, and it brings you totally fresh air, which is actually really radical in the built environment. But
if I can add something to your point, you can upgrade filters, the HEPA filters and MERV filters. So you can they come with good filters. You can actually make them better. And when you talk about the off-gassing of stuff in homes, because every home has that new home smell, right? Those are toxins. Those are bad. Those make people sick. So in built green homes, they're not allowed. We don't have anything that can off-gas. It has to be no VOC paints and no added formaldehyde, no carpets that can off-gas, and cabinets and flooring. So none of those things come into any of our homes to begin with. So, we're starting from a healthier standpoint all in one, because built green is a holistic approach to construction. It's not just about energy, which we're talking about today. So I think it's important. We're not having to filter out toxins, because they don't exist in a really sustainable home.
That is a great point. Well made. Thank you. Norm, really, just back to you, same question. If you can speak about, some of the compelling technologies that TC builds with and how they might pay for their own costs. You know, I mean, Anthony had an example about the fluid applied membrane that was a vapor barrier, and it, you know, it's also the moisture barrier. I mean, TC Legend, I mean, what is it that you're doing? Where's the cost benefits that other builders might be compelled to look at, you know?
Right. Well, you know, I don't have a whole lot of experience like actually comparing you know, a code minimum home to what we do. I know that, you know, from the bottom with our foundations, we've gotten competitive bids to form up our stem walls and footings from some local contractors, and the cost was exactly the same as our budget that included an ICF foundation. So it's in the labor right there, where you know, the conventional foundation would cost a whole lot more, and when we're done, we have an insulated stem wall, on top of the fact that, you know, I can pack 24 linear feet both sides of 2 foot tall stem wall on one shoulder. So it goes up really fast, and the whole perimeter of your foundation is really well insulated. I can't say enough good stuff about the ICFs. I'll never go back to packing form boards. With the SIPS panels, it's a little bit gray because it incorporates all your insulation. The entire envelope is just all kind of built in. All the chases for the electrical are already pre-installed, kind of carved out through the foam in the middle of the walls at outlet level and switch level. So that's pretty convenient. Our electricians love it. And when you break it down, I mean, I've seen some stuff on the website where we get our panels from that compare it, and they break it down to the point where you know, they've got a bunch of future cost savings kind of built into this equation, and you know, it's believable where it would come out to be on par with a conventionally, you know, stick frame 2x6 wall.
When you talk about,
and then
sorry, go ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
was just gonna say, you know, with the triple pane windows, I mean, the cost to upgrade is negligible as far as we've seen, and then we use a whole lot less lumber all the way around. And I mean, we all know the cost of lumber is going up quickly. So, and then, you know, at the end of the day, we have a really inexpensive heating system in these houses because it just doesn't take much. You know, we're able to throw the money at different spots and options for our homeowners. You know, the solar panels, and you know, the heat recovery systems and ventilators, all this stuff that just kind of increases the quality of life in the homes. So
interesting. Okay, so you see a trade-off, which makes sense now. You speak about it in the cost of the mechanical systems being lower, whilst the cost of the envelope goes up. So there's a trade-off there. So the money it's not necessarily an expense to build a more high-performance shell, because you get some of them, or maybe all of the money back from the mechanical systems. Okay, let's do a little exercise. Let's just do this exercise, kind of fun. Okay, the world is cooking, climate change is on. You know, there's an announcement, climate change is going to happen next week, and you've absolutely got to change your buildings like now. So the question, and we'll stay with you, Norm, to begin with, is what's the first thing that you would do out of all these technologies? Which is the easiest to deploy? You know, you're under the pressure, you've got to make it happen. What are you going to do out of all the elements that you've discussed?
If we're going to be building, you know, and we could only choose one, it would be that envelope. You know, I mean, it's got to be airtight, and just to minimize any leakage of heat. I mean, that's where our biggest loads in our house go to.
Okay, so you think that air sealing the envelope is the easiest win for one of the better? Would you agree with that, Anthony, or is there something that you feel is more compelling or easier to deploy?
Hands down, I would agree. You stole my guess as well. So my guess, my answer. but right behind that would be upgrade your window package to a triple pane window. So, you know, if there's a 1A, this would be a 1B for me.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, that's it. Any builder can build an airtight house, and you can upgrade to triple pane windows pretty easily. Not a huge
Correct.
cost difference. So I think those two things would help get any home to be substantially more energy efficient.
Okay, well, the world's gone crazy. There's no air sealing technology available. You can't buy it. Everybody wants it, and there's no triple pane windows available. What do you do next?
I had a neighbor that used to go out when it was sub-zero temperatures and spray his house with water so that it would freeze, and he wouldn't have to use any kind of aero barrier, any of those things. And
That's making it sound a little bit like Alaska to me.
yeah, it was. You know, the next thing are going to be your heat pumps. They are a fantastic, you know, way to heat, and you know, you just can't beat them. You know, it's funny looking through the new energy codes about all these different heating systems, and I'm still scratching my head wondering why they're in there. They crossed off oil heating systems, but you know, that was it. And I'm still kind of curious, you know, why they just don't make it the only option
For a heat pump.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, understood. Okay, so the heat pump is a compelling technology. I mean, I'm just going to run this list until we've exhausted all the easy options. And I guess what we're trying to do here is describe to builders who were maybe like a 4-star built green builder how to like move to progress down the high performance road. What are the easy technologies to adopt? So heat pump, I hear, you know, Anthony,
we'll go all electric. I mean, getting rid of gas, it's coming anyway. The embodied energy of bringing gas to your site and the cost of gas really just isn't in the cards much longer. So going all electric is going to save you a lot of money. It's going to save you construction costs as well. So, you know, induction cooktops, you know, mini split heat pumps, that's heating and cooling. Now the climate's changing, right? So now we don't just open the windows around here in the Northwest for air conditioning. You know, now sometimes you gotta cool your house down, and you know that's the beautiful thing about mini splits and heat pumps. It does heating and cooling, and so your house can always stay just perfectly comfortable and balanced. And going all electric is the best way to offset it with solar anyway. So it's much tougher for solar to offset gas or fossil fuels. So you know we don't want those. They're not good for the environment, and they're really not good to be in your house. So you know I think getting away from that, we did it about 7 years ago. We went all electric, and we've never looked back. We've never had one person complain about not having gas in their house.
Yeah, sounds great. I mean, since the energy code's come up, let's just come back to the energy code, because I mean, 2018 energy code just got delayed again, so it should be enforced sometime in the summer. But I mean, there are things in the energy code that, you know, are going to look like they're beginning to be required. I mean, the HRV, for example, comes with your air leakage portfolio. You know, the energy credits. I mean, in the first case, just if anybody doesn't know, the energy credits required under the 2018 energy code have gone up. Small house used to be credit and a half, now it's 3. Medium house used to be 4.5 maybe, and now it's 6. And a big house is now 7. But you know, for the category 2 energy credits, the air leakage out of the building is now coupled with the HRV. It's, I think my reading, which was pretty quick, says you've got to have the HRV as one in some of the higher value credits. So let's talk a bit about HRVs. What does it actually cost to put an HRV in? Who do you use? Who do you like? What does it cost? How does it work? Pitfalls, benefits, you know. Norm, do you want to pick this one up first? And let's just have you dive in on heat.
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty stuck on the Zender, which I know is kind of a higher level of quality, but we're all familiar with it now. It's easy for us to install, and it does a fantastic job. One of those units that you install and you just don't have to ever worry about it again. And you kind of want that in an HRV because it is running 24/7. So, I mean, we still install another HEPA filter in line with that, just for air quality. But it sounds like Anthony has another model that you might be able to just.
Well, just before you finish, Norm, just let me drag you back to cost, because cost is relevant. What do you charge to install an HRV, and perhaps which model? You know, I understand it's a Zender, but do you know what you charge?
I think we buy the 3500, which is our mid-sized house model, for about three grand, and then fully installed, which includes all the ventilation. It's anywhere between 7 and 10 grand
Right.
for the entire system. But the ducting is something that everybody's got to do anyway at this point.
Right.
So you can back that out of the equation. But yeah, the unit is 3 grand.
All right, Anthony, back to you to speak on HRVs, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. So HRVs are the backbone of what we've been doing since 2008, when nobody even knew what an HRV was. So we've kind of jumped around to different brands. They're all it's a pretty simple mechanism to begin with. I mean, the Zender we put into some of our Uber award-winning kind of like premier homes that we really want to just push the envelope on. So we've done about a dozen of the Zenders, but we go the stepping down from that really isn't a big difference in performance. That from a modeling standpoint is probably maybe 20-30% difference. But the cost is for us. Well, again, we're spec builders. We got to watch every dollar that comes in is important that goes out. So we use the Fantech. We have a new Hero series that is really been well received. We put in the last few homes. It has multiple filters inside that you can upgrade and change. And our HVAC guys come in and just bang those things out. It's standard ducting that goes up through to every room and pulls air out of bathrooms and brings fresh air into bedrooms. I mean, it wasn't that long ago where the Seattle code required a 4-inch hole in every bedroom that stays open all the time, that connected to the outdoors, because they think that if you shut your door, you won't get any fresh air, and you have to have, so that those holes are all gone now. You don't have to do those in the code. Thank goodness. It's hard to keep a tight envelope when you have to deal with that. But so from soup to nuts, all in, it's anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 to get a high quality balance. The key thing is you got to come back and balance these things. So we have our energy verifier. We use Tadashi Shiga, Evergreen certified. He goes around, he sends his team out. He does our built green verification, but he also does our balancing of the HRVs to make sure that the right amount of CFMs are flowing and exhausting in each location. So just getting it in is one thing, getting it balanced so it's actually being efficient is something else.
Well, and that's a valid point. Balancing, I mean, it's important to know that a house that's heated by blowing hot air is pressurized, and that pressurized air leaks out of the holes. So if it is balanced and the house isn't positively pressurized, there's less imperative to leak, you would think. All right, so we got heat pumps. Let's perhaps talk a little bit about windows, which suppliers you like, which you don't like, you values, our values, if you know.
You want to go first this time?
Let's stay with you, and then we'll run back to Norm.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've imported windows from Portugal by Intis, and super high performance passive house glass, logistics shipping them in. I mean, when you want the super high performance, it's really hard. They're really not available here in the U.S. There's some in Canada, and they're really expensive. And so you got to have the right project or the right client in order to be able to get those into your homes effectively. So we chose to partner with used to be called Atrium Windows, but it's now they're called Prime. They're made right here in Washington State. So we use Prime windows, and we also use Plygem windows, and they do a really good triple pane window, and it meets our budgets. But more importantly, it meets the values that we need to have for those windows in order to achieve our Built Green certification.
Great stuff. Norm, who are TC Legend using for windows?
Yeah, we have used the Plygems a handful of times as well. But then we also use, probably a little more often now, the Vinyltex, and they are manufactured just across the border in BC. We do like the Vinyltex. They do have some of those kind of fancier features where they, they'll tilt in for, just venting or fresh air. The doors, some of the French doors have 4-point locking system. They seal up really tight. But it's just really all about getting triple panes.
Great. Sorry,
I've got mill guards in my own house. I mean, even they make them. So.
Wonderful. All right, we'll just go around once more, and then we'll get on to the meat of how to actually sell this stuff and how to get, to pass the value on to your customers. But just before we finish up, just heat pumps, who's TC Legend using for heat pumps, just and why, and any detail you can add that might be useful?
Yeah, we will use our Fujitsu mini splits in smaller homes, you know, and you can have multiple heads with a lot of these units. In fact, we did a 4,000 square foot home with 4 heads, I believe, which was a little challenging. Well, all the runs and the line sets get, you know, pretty complicated when you're running that many through the house. They all have the condensate drains that need to make it out. But then for some of our homes that are insistent on, you know, the hydronic heating in the floors, we'll use the Chiltrix, and it's a pretty nice system. We're finally getting to the point with the manufacturer where, you know, the first model had some major glitches, and I've become a tech as well as my partner Ted to fix all these. But it does a lot. It'll heat your radiant floors. It heats your domestic hot water. It cools through a fan coil, and then it'll also we've installed this. It's called a Comfo post, which is basically, I call it the air radiator, which hangs in line with your ventilation system, and it's basically just runs the same hot water through that as well. And
got it.
it's
So
been pretty good. We like them more and more every day.
fabulous. Okay, same question for you, Anthony. Heat pumps.
So we've used the Chiltrix on a couple projects. Love it. I'm not set up to know how to navigate the mechanics of those things like TC Legend is. So, you know, unfortunately, we've been like the test bunny on a lot of these products that come. So the Chiltrix, we were one of the first guys, along with you guys, to start incorporating them, and they're great. It's the service part of it and understanding how to really design the systems that become the challenge. We've also used the Sandin, which is a CO2 heat pump, which was, we were part of a test case with Washington State University, and they brought a bunch of them into our homes. Those things are awesome as well, and the same mind as the Chiltrix. But again, a complicated system with not a ton of support. There is more now for the Sandin here locally, and we really like that. But you know, I want to keep I'm a spec builder. I keep going back to that. So callbacks and simple systems that are easy to fix and easy to get to and easy to maintain, that are really efficient. So we use the Mitsubishi the heat pump system. You can get up to 5 heads on one pump from outside. You can actually program them now. Now you can't heat them and cool them at the same time. So they all have to be in the heat mode or a cool mode. But what you can do, they have an app that you can program the system. So upstairs you can go in cool mode for, you know, between 4 and 5 o'clock, and then we'll shut that off and put heat down in the basement, you know, right after that for 20 minutes. So you can actually program the house. They can go in and out of heating and cooling, which that's what people want. They want the ability to adapt to their home and their comfort level. So those are pretty neat features as well. But we've done the Daikin as well. So they're all comparable and they're all really efficient. And the same for hot water. Heat pump water heaters are right in there with the heating and cooling systems that we have. So there's lots of different brands for heat pump water heaters, and that's what we put in our homes as well. And they add a whole other layer of efficiency.
Well, throw some names out. Who are you using for heat pump hot water heaters? I know TC uses Ream.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same with us.
Yeah, Ream standard. Okay.
Yeah, and there's Bradford. I think Bradford White. I think that's the name of them. They have them. They're all now pretty good. GE had a product called Wellsprings, and which was really good, and then they discontinued it. So I don't know why. We were buying a bunch of them. So you know, they're all pretty comparable right now. It's just a matter of what size you need, and you know.
All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
All good stuff. Well, I wanted to move on. We're going to kind of try and close up a little bit with like this idea of like how to sell or how to like get your client to sort of buy into, you know, this concept. But I just did want to clarify something for the audience before we move on, that both TC Legend homes and Dwell Development are design and build. And I think it's probably self-evident, but I just wanted to really clarify that, because when you're making all these decisions, you can design them in. Whereas if you just get handed a set of plans and say, build this house, it's going to be more of a struggle, or a struggle. So I just wanted to clarify that. But hi, Sonia.
Hi, I just needed to step in. We wanted to just have a clarification real quick. Governor Inslee actually reverted back the energy code, so it will be implemented February 1st. That was news as of like 2 hours ago. So,
Oh, wow.
but just for the rest of the webinar participants, it will be in effect February 1st.
Breaking news. You heard it here first.
Wow.
Good stuff. All right, thank you.
Here we go.
Get your orders in on the HRVs.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our last point was really, you know, these elements cost money, and you know, is really how to sell the benefits of some of these high performance features to your clients in the design process, or how they sell them further down the line. And the HRV is a really pretty easy example to speak to, because you get this incredible air quality and people relate to it, and then there's smoke. But some of the elements are more difficult to sell. I mean, how do you, I mean, what have we got? I mean, how do you work it, Anthony? I mean,
Yes, yeah.
it's a very vague question.
Yeah, well,
I'm running out.
No, it's the core of what you know. I find my job at Dwell is I'm kind of the brand manager, and I qualify our buyers. And so we pre-sell a lot of our homes, and a lot of people want to come buy one of our homes because they're cool and they've heard about Dwell and they're energy efficient. But if we don't have the right education in that buyer's mind, but I don't want someone to buy our house because it's a cool house and they can write a check. That doesn't fulfill me as a builder, because what we build is really, really special. I mean, Dwell and TC Legend Homes build the most energy efficient, sustainable homes in the world right now. I mean, we're on par with everybody that's out there that's efficient. So I qualify my buyers. I give them a new buyer, you know, sit down with them, and I actually give them a class. And if I don't feel that they are going to embrace it and appreciate the value of the systems and be a part of this bigger global issue that we all have, then we won't proceed. And so, you know, I don't want to sound like I'm egotistical, but, you know, it has to be a good marriage, and that comes through education. It comes through training our buyers, training our brokers, our mortgage lenders. Everybody's got to understand that what they're getting isn't just a standard home.
But it sounds to me like you have a queue of people down the street who want to buy your houses. Now, perhaps maybe let's say that queue's all gone, and now now you've actually got to sell. And I guess the question is, you know, we're asking people to pay more for a house, and it's pretty logical when you think about it. This is a highly insulated house. It's going to have lower running costs, and you know, the total cost of ownership. You know, if you live in this house for 30 years, your energy bills are going to be so much less. And I mean, I know when you apply for a Department of Energy award, they actually do the math for you. Your HERS rater will do the math, and it will tell you that your energy savings over 30 years will be $60,000. I mean, do you use those? Do you have a way of calculating the energy saving? And do you turn that into dollar bills for your clients as well? Can you turn the energy?
Yeah, we used to do like a food label, like on our front door, and we can talk about this not right now, but we used to do a little food label because people understand how to read a food label. And this is a Dwell built home, and this is a code built home, and here's what your energy cost is compared to a code home and a Dwell home. And you got to make it tangible and intangible differences, because a lot of things people are just going to benefit from because they're living in a healthy home. They're not going to know what's going on behind the walls. And you also got to show them where it hits them in the pocketbook, where they're going to save money, a lot of money, by living in a high performance net zero energy ready home. And, you know, it starts with these utility bills. I mean, this is a slide that I'm working with Sam Rashkin from the Department of Energy on, and we're doing a presentation at the IBS show next month. And this is one of the slides that we got, because this really shows the builder and the buyer of the impact. So what this is showing, and we all talk to this, so I'll take the first one on utility bills, you know, the 30-year cost benefit. And this is like, just pick one of the things that were on, TC Legends list or Dwell's list, you know, a $3,000 or $5,000 investment. This is what it can turn into for your utility bills. Over 30 years, you can save up to $45,000 in utility bills. The average base net zero energy ready home. This is net zero energy ready. This isn't even with solar on it, you know, projects, 30 years ranging from $25,000 to $65,000. So that's tangible. That's money in your pocket that you can put for your kids' college fund, or put it in as an investment in a stock somewhere and actually make, you know, a return on. So this is real money. This isn't just chump change.
You know, it'd be really interesting to see that fruit label, and actually just almost, if you had any way of sharing the math and how you actually calculate it. You know, let's say we're now going to build an R30 wall, or we used to build an R21 wall. How much energy does that save? how do we turn those terms into dollars so that a guy who's trying to make the leap can actually just do the math and say, hey, guy, I'm going to build your house, but we're going to do an R30 wall, and it's going to save you $12,000 over 5 years, and it's going to cost you $3,000. Do you want to do it, yes or no? So, but if there's any way for you to share that out in the future, or Built Green could disseminate that process, I think that would actually have real utility. But let's move down the list. Health expenses. Norm, do you want to have a swing at health expenses? You know, HRV, air quality, smoke, forest fires, those kinds of things?
Sure. I mean, we all know after the past couple summers how bad the smoke was here in the Northwest. My wife and I actually had to wear masks while we slept in a hotel room on our way across the state last summer. I mean, it's getting bad, and it's getting worse. I mean, one trip to the doctor, one case of asthma, and I mean, it's a
Right.
you know, it's a $2,000 unit that you install in your house from the beginning. Honestly, just for the sake of comfort alone and not having to, deal with the smoke in the summers, that, it's worth it.
Yeah, so that's it. And it's occurred to me that, I mean, you want to go to the gym in the burn, you want to go to a gym, for example, or somewhere, you want to go and hang out at someone's house that's got clean air. Clean air is going to become a thing that people differentiate their location around, certainly going forward, and it didn't burn this summer. Let's roll down maintenance.
Yeah, and I know we want to get to questions from the guests here, so I'll just finish this out if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah, blast through it.
The durable products that go into homes that we build, you're going to save $30,000 over 30 years just in not having to deal with crappy materials that aren't durable, and then the value added. We love to think that our homes are more valuable than other homes because of what we put into them. A lot of times people don't see that, but this is the real breaking point. And I'll close with this before we go to questions, is that I always share this example. 2009, I built a 1,500 square foot house in Columbia City in a community called Rainier Vista. And it was the first phase of doing it. We did like 45 homes in there. And I pre-sold the home and foundation. It was $400,000, 0 days on the market, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. And another builder in the same community, right down the street, same block, built a beautiful home, kind of modern, very reputable builder. He was on the market, same size house. He was on the market for 175 days and sold his house for $100,000 less. Wow. And it was a great home. I don't understand why. Was it our design? Was it our sustainability? It was a combination of all those things. But to answer this question, the value added, people are willing to pay for it because they feel they're getting more value, not just from the health of the home, but from the tangible savings and utility bills and so forth too. So, I think that's really, really important to add in there.
Well, and it should become the new standard. It should, standard.
Yep.
Great stuff. All right. Well, thanks, gents. I think we're going to questions.
Yes. So just so every attendee is aware, we did allow for some extra time for Q&A. So if you are available, we will be answering most of the questions we have here. We have about 11. So please stick around if you're curious. Otherwise, we will be recording and you can follow up with the Q&A session if you need to move on to a different part of your day. But we will be continuing until about 3:30 today, in case you want to stick around. So the first question, jumping back to, let's see. So basic question that somebody would like answered first at the top of the session was, what is the requirement for insulation R value with the new code?
Great question.
And I know it depends on if you're talking about walls, roof, or anything else.
I thought it was the same. It's still an R21 in the walls, or maybe that's, maybe is that the bumped up new code? Because
R21 with R8, yeah, but I don't
pay attention to minimum code. I mean,
I don't even know what the code is.
It really enters our radar anymore.
Therein lies the problem. I'm looking at the code. I mean, the credits you got.
Doesn't that speak to your guys's design and practices, making it so that the code really doesn't affect you as much anymore? I mean, there's going to be details here and there, but that seems like it might be a benefit.
Absolutely. We're building homes that are going to meet the code in 20 years from now. And we've been building that way for a long time. So, you know, to answer your question, yeah, we don't even, I mean, the bare minimum is, you know, down there. We build them the way we build them. And if someone asked me what the code is for a wall, I'm like, I don't know. We built double 2-foot walls and pack it full of insulation. So it's like double.
The minimum you can get a credit for is an R21 wall. It looks like it's plus R4 of rigid foam on the outside. So like 2 inches of rigid foam on board on the outside, but that's the minimum you can get a credit for. But like the gents have said, because these guys are neither of them building, they're building enormously high performance houses. Unfortunately, they're too, yeah, we don't know.
Embarrassing.
Well, the key point I think to take away is that if you're following what these guys are doing and doing the same sort of things, you don't need, you'll definitely meet code and not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
All right, so we had a couple of questions regarding HRVs. So are there other options like ERVs, and can you discuss, do you guys use them at all? And then another related to retrofitting existing homes with HRVs, and if you have any idea of what that looks like or cost. And I'll follow up after those 2 questions with another HRV question just to.
Boy, Anthony, you might have some more information about this, but retrofitting a home with an HRV could get pretty challenging with the infrastructure of ducting that needs to be in there from the get-go. I mean, it needs to be, you know, balanced, and it's you're tearing apart walls to make that happen, because you're sucking from, you know, moist areas in the house like your bathrooms and your laundry room, and then you're pumping back into, you know, bedrooms and living spaces. So
unless you like exposed spiral duct, in which case it could look fabulous. Well, if it's, you know, if it's a modern aesthetic, you could just look at it, in which case it would be easier. Or
yeah, unless you're doing like a, you know, a gut remodel type of job where you can get to the wall cavities and run your ductwork, I think an HRV would be really challenging to do in a remodel. As far as heat recovery ventilators and ERVs, energy recovery ventilators, you know, my understanding, I've done an ERV once, and really our climate here in the Northwest, you know, the marine climate is very temperate. You don't have super hot days and super cool days. The HRV is more modeled for this climate zone, compared to like an ERV in Minnesota would probably be more appropriate, you know, in these extreme climates. So, you know, they basically are doing the same thing. There's some nuances to an ERV that I don't know because I don't use it, but my understanding is that they're really based. I don't know if Jake, you can speak to that.
well, I think there's room for confusion here, because those little single room units used to be called ERVs, and they maybe still are, you know, where you just plug them into one room and it does a single room. That was also called an ERV when I looked at them a couple of years ago. So that may be source for confusion. But just to clarify, an HRV leaves the moisture in the heating air, and an ERV spins it out. So one is for use in a dry climate and one's for use in a wet climate. We really don't. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. I just thought of something in regards to the remodeling. They have little spot HRVs that you can buy now that are literally, you mount in the ceiling, you can duct them straight out. So if you have a small space and you don't have room to get ducting everywhere, they have spot HRVs and ERVs that look like, you know, they look like a flush mounted wall fit into the ceiling panel, and you can actually use an HRV that way. So that would be the way to do a remodel. Yeah.
That might be super cool in like your bedroom or your living room. You just choose the rooms you need to ventilate and get power to it and drill your hole in the wall. And that may be a way to go.
True.
What else? I
So
think
the other HRV question was in relations to if you have a smaller home. So we've been, your traditional kind of typical building that you guys were pricing out and discussing earlier is around 2,500 square feet. But let's say you're building a smaller home with no attached garage, no utility room, where would the HRV equipment go? So your townhouse.
It's a lot like the unit that Anthony was just mentioning. You know, we did do a tiny house, or it was a tiny office at the time, and we installed one of those, you know, single units that, you know, it had 2 vents going out the wall, and it was recovering the heat, you know, by itself, just kind of as a standalone little miniature system.
And that was an overhead unit mounted on the ceiling, but we've also put a Zender 200 in a closet space. They'll fit in a closet space, and that's okay. The thing to note that's important is that the bigger the unit, the more air it can move. So people say small house, but if you've got lots of friends that come over and they are all breathing, you're going to want to move a lot more air. And it's kind of relevant, and the good HRVs come with a CO2 detector. So if it detects lots of CO2, it knows there's lots of people in there, and it ramps the fan up. I would say a lot of the HRVs that TC Legend fits are fitted high up towards the ceiling, and you could kind of almost maybe put them above the bench if people sit down to take their boots on and off. You know, it could fit in an entryway with a little bit of ingenuity. Maybe in the stair space, if you've got, you know, that top triangle above the stairs where you don't need the overhead space, that potentially.
Yeah, I've done some small townhouses, and you know, we didn't have the space to get the HRV in that we thought we had, so we've done them in the tops of closets. You hang your shelf and clothes underneath them. As long as you have access to them, we've done them underneath stairs, and because that usually gives you opportunity to get ducting up, like was already mentioned. So they're not that big. I mean, you can get an HRV, you know, like a 200 or 250 is the size of probably a microwave, you know, a large microwave. So you can imagine getting a microwave somewhere kind of mounted to the wall, and you can get your ducts out to it.
Excuse me. But they are completely I think they're the best thing that's happened in building science for a long time. I think HRVs are the bomb, because the fresh air quality, I sell them to people like this. I explained that fresh air feeling you get when you open the door. You've been indoors, you open the door, you walk outside, and you go ping, and you wake up because you've got that fresh air. That's how you feel inside a house when you're running an HRV. And the other thing we've noticed is that people whose houses we've designed where we fit HRVs, we don't fit nearly as many opening windows because they don't open them. Nobody with an HRV, a good solid HRV running, ever opens the windows. So we don't fit them. And since an opening window is twice the cost of a fixed window, you can cover a lot of your HRV cost based on the fact that people just don't open the windows because the air quality is stellar inside. You know.
Yeah, and 90% efficiency is impressive. You know, it's capturing 90% of the heat out of the outgoing air. I don't know. I don't know the exact mechanics of it, but it's impressive.
Norm, I have a question for you. Maybe Jake can chip in. Are SIPs an option when fire rated walls are required?
Yeah, actually, well, we've done some additional techniques to fire rate certain walls in our houses, but there are some, you know, like there's a new foam that we're using that has a kind of a graphite base to it. And not only is it have a higher R value, but than the regular old white polystyrene, but it also has some fire retardants in it as well. So
the SIPs, all the SIPs come with a design, like a factory test, a panel test, and there is a fire code section on it for basically how to layer up the sheetrock and how to screw it. So yes, you can build a rated firewall. I mean, half an hour, definitely, probably an hour. I don't know if there's a 2 hour, but there's a standard detail that's stamped and approved, and the fire department will okay it.
Right.
So getting back to the windows, so you guys had covered the windows. Somebody asked, you still need egress windows from bedrooms, and it's nice to be able to wash windows from inside of the house. I guess that's more of a comment than a question. I do like this question because this comes up a lot about why a lot of homes don't get to 100% electricity. If they do go all electric, what fireplace replacement options have you guys used or are familiar with?
What do you think, Anthony?
We don't put them in.
We
We
do.
don't put them in. We started, I built a couple of 5-star Built Green homes, and this before we went all electric, and I put a gas fireplace in because you have to market the home, right? Well, the home was so efficient that the little pilot light that you leave on in the gas fireplace would overheat the house, and the in-floor radiant heat wouldn't kick on, and it just wasn't comfortable. So I told them to turn off the pilot light, because the only time people put those things on are for ambiance. And so there's electric versions that you can buy that kind of cheesy looking. So we just own it. We say, look, most people don't use fireplaces. They are a horrible, even if you have a natural fireplace or a gas fireplace, they're just not good. They're not good for the environment. They're not good for heat loss and energy consumption. So, fossil fuel. So we just designed them completely out of our homes, and we don't have anybody push back. We just sold a really beautiful home in Wallingford for a really big price, and there's no fireplace in it. And they said, good, because we don't like fireplaces. So I hope that answers that question.
We use the like the fake fireplaces, the ones that are basically they're like a pair of tights with a light and a fan, and they've got an tiny little electric fan, so that it can look like a fireplace, and it can be on, or it can look like a fireplace and be off, but it's basically an electric, right? An electric an filament thing. And they kind of make people happy because the mind is easily fooled. We put one in the Worrell house, if you remember, Norm, and they do sit around it,
Yeah, they do. We put a gas fireplace in one of our homes. It was a deal breaker. This was about 2 years ago. And so we put it in, and I went over there to, I don't know, give them a tutorial on something else, but it was about 87 degrees in their house. And it's like all the windows are open, and they've got this fireplace cooking away. But yeah, you overheat. And that's what we found out. So, if you really need a fireplace, maybe put it on the patio.
Well, just a fake one that just looks like a fireplace, because the house doesn't need the heat. People come to us often and say, hey, we want to put a wood burning stove in it. And we're just like, you're going to have it on for like 4 minutes, and then your house is going to be cooking, and then you're going to have to open all the doors and windows because it's going to spew out like 70,000 BTUs per hour. And your house, the heat load for a TC Legend house is like 12,500 is about average. These houses are so well insulated, they can't cope with being heated in that way.
It's a mind shift. It's just a shift in what consumers used to want in their homes and what builders want to give them. Now we're talking about rough-in for solar readiness, smart home technology. So it's just having that extra office or place for your kids to do schoolwork. So now we're shifting now the dialogue and the needs and wants of buyers. And if someone wants a fireplace, like Norm said, outdoor living's great. Get a fire pit outside and go for it.
Or a 4K TV with a really good video of a fireplace. The mind is pretty easily fooled, isn't it?
How is the fluid applied waterproof barrier applied, and do you need to seal off from the neighbors? So this is more of a technical application question.
Just think about painters coming to your house to roll on paint on the outside. It's literally, they take their pump jacks, they go around the exterior of the house. It takes them about they're not detailed like a painter. They're just rolling it on and putting mesh on the seams and adding little flaps on the windows. It takes about a good 2 days to do a 2,500 square foot house. So you'd have to take the same precautions if you're really close to a neighbor as you would if you were spraying, but you're not spraying paint, so it's not going to get particles everywhere. It's just a roll-on product. So really, we've never had any issues with it outside of it just dripping on the ground, and they got to clean it up.
Hey, Anthony, I have a question about that. Do you guys put it on the roof as well?
No, it doesn't. It's not the products like a TPO roof or the insulation isn't rated to go against the EnviroDry. So they don't want those products touching and being in contact.
Gotcha.
It's just one of those things, and there's really no need for it up there anyway. But in your application, it might make sense. I don't know. Yeah, the SIPs.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
And water heating and heat pump water heaters. You mentioned a couple. Could you sort of discuss, is there a way to combine your heat pumps, or is it you guys typically use separate heat pumps for different applications, and then maybe just retouch on what those the heat pump water heaters you use were?
Yeah, so we steer away from, having two exterior heat pumps on a house. It's a little bit of overkill. When we're trying to achieve domestic hot water and heating a home, we'll use the Chiltrix. We also have the option then to cool in the summertime with the Chiltrix. When we're building smaller homes and we're doing a domestic hot water system and a mini split, then we will use the heat pump water heater, which just has the heat pump, mounted on the top of it. And we've experimented a little bit with like ducting that exhausted cool air out, because it's, when it's in your conditioned space, it's sucking up your warm air, harvesting the heat out of it, and then pumping cold air out. So, you don't want that cold air being reintroduced into the house. So we have tried to pipe that out, or give an option to use it in the summertime when you're heating hot water, and then you can use it as kind of an AC for the inside of your house. And
yeah, we use the same system. I mean, we've done the Chiltrix, but we can't afford to do that in all our homes. So we do the mini splits and the heat pump water heaters in separate units, and the heat pump water heaters, they are substantially more efficient when you vent them, per Norm's suggestion, because it's cool air coming out of those things. But you can capture it. Like, we designed a house where you can actually export that cool air into a wine room next door if you want to keep your wine room tempered with just a little flapper valve, and then it goes outside 90% of the time. You want to cool a room or a space, you can open it up, but they really do need to be vented outside. But if you want to maximize the efficiency of the unit, you can make them non-vented, but then you're dealing with the cooling aspects of it.
Have you had a condensation problem on the cool vent line? Have you had to insulate the cool vent line because they're condensating inside the houses?
Oh, you gotta definitely wrap those things for sure. Yeah.
Right.
Insulate them well. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so the big questions that have been hanging out here. We're getting to solar panels. We had a couple long kind of questions, so I'm gonna bear with me as I sort of paraphrase. There was a comment about how Western Washington has a really poor solar radiation index compared to other regions. And, there is a cost as far as the solar panel production and the waste disposal problem of solar panels, if there not being any sort of recycling strategy currently. And then also the cost of the solar energy is higher than if you did like a PSE utility green power program, where you just paid a little bit more on your utility bill to purchase from utility renewable level energy. So they kind of asked, like, what is the environmental kind of ethical standpoint to install solar panels on your projects? Why do you guys do them?
Should we just pass this around? I'm happy to jump in first. Let's just go through it. So the worst solar radiation, I think Washington has 3.5 daylight hours, and it's just averaged out. So sure, it's going to be pretty bad because there's cloud, but it's enough to drive a net zero house. So it's definitely mechanically okay to do it. The cost of solar power through the panel versus power from the subsidies, I'm not aware of the details. I'm aware we had a client last year turn around and say, we don't want to put solar on the roof because the math doesn't pencil out. And I looked at the math and it was about a wash, but you've got some energy independence. And critically, from my point of view, you are getting behind a technology that needs to grow. I mean, there is enough solar, there's enough sunshine in the state to make it work, and adopting technologies that have potential is an ethically responsible thing to do. Get behind solar. The costs are coming down, and the costs on solar panels are dropping daily. So it's always worth checking in on the math regularly to see where the cost is at. So ethically get behind it, because it's got to get behind, we've got to get behind it somehow. There aren't that many other avenues for creating power that's basically free, as in solar. So that's how I would speak to that. The recycling program, I don't know about, and the carbon footprint of the panel itself, the embedded energy in the panel, I'm aware it exists. I don't know what the math is, but that's probably my piece, which is it's viable to drive your house net metered from solar, so do it. I understand that some of the math is a wash, and some of the energy stuff is a wash, but it's got to happen in order to bring the world back from the edge of like a climate catastrophe. Solar needs to be endorsed. I mean, look at Germany. Germany has an unbelievably huge solar deployment. And so stuff is moving, and I'm just going to stand behind the Germans and say, well, if the Germans are doing it, then it can't be all bad.
Yeah, I'll jump in on that. I mean, what's the one country in the world that does more solar than anybody? It's just Germany. And they have weather very similar here in Seattle, if not even more cloudier. So, for me, I think it's more ethical to do it than it is not to do it. You can create a dialogue and a narrative about the embodied energy of these systems, but the fact that you are producing an on-site renewable energy that can run your home and your life, and the rest goes out to the grid, and then there's incentives for you to do that. It's a no-brainer. I mean, it's going to be code here sooner now. If we're following California, their net energy, it's going to be a matter of time when we're doing one of these classes, and we're not just talking about triple pane windows and HRVs. We're talking about you guys have to get to net zero. It's coming, and the climate needs it, and our building community needs this to happen. So, but when you're talking about just incentives for it, I mean, the federal government steps in, and I think it is renewed it. I think it is inked it, where it got extended again. I think it's 26% of the initial cost is automatically given back to the homeowner. I mean, I can buy a solar package and put it on one of my homes, but that homeowner gets that in tax write-off year one. So if I put in a $30,000 solar package, they get a $10,000 or close to a $10,000 write-off on their taxes year one. That goes straight to the homeowner. Then they get all that free energy for the rest of the life that's going through the house. They're using that energy. It's going back to the grid. And there's going to be times where you're going to be getting credits every month from your utility provider, and there's going to be times where you're going to be paying into it. But the point is, as it balances out from the dark days and the sunny days, at the end, you want to be at net zero. That's really what we're all trying to accomplish. And who doesn't win there? Everybody wins, right?
Right. And the elephant in the room, to do with certainly the houses that TC Legend builds, and indeed you as well, Anthony, is net metering. And that's a discussion that it's not getting enough discussion, because net metering is the practice by which we make solar and then we push it out to the grid when we make too much of it, and then we draw on the grid when we need it. So you don't have to make your solar when you need it. So you need energy in the winter, but there's no sunshine. A net metered house makes most of its power in the summer when it doesn't need it. And that arrangement is met with net metering. But the net metering agreement that's legislated isn't going to stay open forever. And then so that's an area that really needs like much more widespread discourse in terms of how to keep the net metering agreement open, so the grid can be balanced, and so all these solar arrays can continue to function, and we can continue to build, solar equipped houses.
Yeah, these should be small businesses that every house that can put solar panels on it could be, in theory, could be its own little business, generating, free energy and putting it back to the grid. And the utility should be paying for that. That's free energy going back to their grid system that they're then selling to somebody else that doesn't have it. So, to your point, Jake, I mean, we have to have a change in that whole dialogue with utility providers, because they're struggling to upkeep their systems. I get it. We have a lot of hydropower around here. I get it. We have really cheap energy rates compared to anywhere else in the country. We're at the bottom. So we're very fortunate where we live that we have low energy rates. We don't have peak rates. We're pretty flat. But to your point, we have to create an incentive for every home buyer to put solar on their roof, because all that energy is coming down on us anyway. You might as well capture it and use it.
Yeah, I'll say one little part there about the the program with PSE where you can purchase credits towards, solar energy or green energy. That's a great program. If you live, in the middle of the woods, or the only, part of your house or roof that could possibly generate power, happens to be on the north side of the house, and it's not going to do anything for you, by all means, buy into it. It is a good program, but make no mistake, they have huge solar panel fields on the east side of the state that are doing the generation. And then the recycling program, quite honestly, I don't know a solar panel that has quit working ever. They just keep going and going and going. 30 years, 50-year panels are still.
They do. Their efficiency drops off, doesn't it? They become less efficient as the glass gets scratched up, I think, and just weathered.
Sure, but they
still work. Yeah, they still chug along.
Yeah, and they paid for themselves, at year 10, 15.
Sooner than that. We run our models for our homeowners that put them on, and with that tax credit, you're getting almost a third back. You're getting up to $5,000. You used to get a tax credit back. Not tax credit, a energy credit back from the utility provider up to $5,000 a year. So now it's even. We predict 5 to 6 years that people can get their return on their investment.
Yeah, amazing.
Your homes are probably faster than that. Your homes are probably faster than that, I would guess.
Well, last question. I want to thank all our panelists for sticking around, and especially our 31 attendees who are still here. Super excited. We had 40 people register today. That's great. Last question. How do you seal the ceiling between the top floor and the roof, particularly with angled roofs?
Well, in a SIPS building, there isn't a ceiling because it's vaulted. Because
so that question is probably for me, right? So that is our non-vented roof system that we already talked about. So on the inside of on the inside of the building, you are literally packing the joists or the trusses with blown-in cellulose insulation and netting that in there so it stays in place. It's packed up against the roof, the bottom side of the roof, packed tight. You always want it almost pillowing out a little bit, not too much. And then on top of that, you can do your rigid. We do our rigid insulation, and then our hardboard and whatever material you want to put up on your roofing. So it gives that great insulated, thermal efficiency that you don't ever have to worry about moisture or air getting in there. That's what creates the issues. So you want it packed tight, and but that's how we do it.
Great. Well, I want to thank everyone again, and just let everyone know on the webinar that if you would like a handout that summarizes all the brands and kind of costs and things that we discussed today, you may email builtgreen@mbax.com, and we will send you that. We will also be sending all registered attendees a recording of this, regardless of if you email us or not, for you to play back as needed. But feel free to email us and respond to the survey as well that you'll be getting after this event. Thank you, Jake, Norm, and Anthony for your time today. And thank you all for attending. Have a good week.
Can I add one thing too? Because
Sure.
I know we talked about this in our practice session. Anybody that wants to talk to me about how to build high performance, energy efficient homes, I'm open to have one-on-ones, phone conversations, Zoom conversations. I want everyone to build the homes these ways. So I know my contact information can be given out through the Master Builders website as well, but I want to make sure everybody knew that. I'm not competitive with other builders. I want to support other builders in building homes like this.
Agreed. Yep. More than happy. Share any trade secrets.
I think you just gave them all away anyway, didn't you?
Yeah, I don't think we need to find a different word for trade secrets if they're not going to be secrets anymore.
They're not really secrets anymore. Yep.
It's called the source.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
Take care, guys.